the volume thing is really, people need to like.
Well, so, yeah, but everyone still does it, don't they?
Yeah. Well, then it's the fear thing now, because I mean, we sit here and we go, we don't like it, but we often fall prey to it because
then we get our mastering back. Well, that's not
that loud. Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, the problem is that it's
give it a bit more of that.
There was a limit before. Like with vinyl, there actually was a ceiling, and you couldn't get a lot of bass response on vinyl. So the trade-off was volume versus bass response.
Yeah.
And as you moved from the first cut into the final cut, it was like that was the trade-off. So now with CD, it's like digital zero, and now with all these emulations that are out there, you can actually theoretically make it sound. Anyway, it's clipping, it's physically distorting. The ear doesn't hear it that way, but it's actually, look at the waveform, it's truncated.
I don't remember hearing that kind of density on vinyl releases. People packing their tracks like that. I would imagine that wouldn't have been.
You couldn't cut a record. You couldn't cut a record because physically, as you try to master it, it would pop out. Yeah.
Well, in those days, you weren't allowed to pan the bass off to the side because you couldn't get it onto vinyl.
Yeah.
There were rules in those days.
Yeah.
Now we live in an anarchic society.
Next question.
Roy, you had said something about the vocals being the principal problem that you find when something's coming from a smaller room.
If it's recorded without attention, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I do music for film, television, advertising, multimedia projects, gaming, and a lot of what I do is finding something that everybody else is ignoring and turning that into a Bank of America commercial.
Okay.
And a lot of times I hear a great song that was recorded in less than optimal circumstances, and the artist doesn't necessarily have the budget to be able to take that recording and bring it to one of you guys and say, can we produce this song again?
Right.
I usually find that the vocals, and disclaimer, I'm a drummer. I usually find that the vocals bother me less in those situations than the drums not sounding like real drums.
Sure.
Can you speak for a moment? I'm sorry about the long.
No, it's okay.
Can you speak for a moment about the drums and how you feel like those sounds coming from a smaller, less professional space may be a problem versus the vocals, and which ones you might address in given a day?
I don't know. It depends on how you hear the song. If the drums, you don't like them, the way they were recorded in whatever environment someone had to do, then
it's kind of like they don't move me. It's not that they don't sound good.
Right.
It's that I don't feel like they don't move me.
Well, that could be performance. It could be anything, really. It's just about, at that point, if it were me, if I were you, I had the tracks, I'd maybe try things to try to, not just to make them sound better, but, make them have a little shape or something, if you happen to be, I come from a mixer standpoint, so, I'd be maybe pushing things dynamically here and there subtly to try to do that thing, but... or just the relationship of the drums to other things, maybe just enough to make them something.
Are you necessarily bothered by those sorts of drum sounds when they come to you?
Sometimes they're less than optimum, I feel, for the song, but I wouldn't say bothered,
The vocal bothers you more when it's not.
Well, to me, I place a lot of importance on the singer. I want to make them sound really, I want them to really be upfront. I like upfront vocals. I like them to sound great all the time through the whole song. That's the thing. The drums you can sort of enhance, maybe adding other sounds to them and that sort of thing. Hard to say about, just got to try things, I think.
Actually, just to follow on your question, I think that, if you're actually recording the drums yourself, I think one of the biggest problems you get when we deal with home recordings is a lot of times people don't follow like the basic principle, which is like, you walk out to the instrument and hear what it sounds like in the room, and go back into whatever your control room is and listen to it, and don't have any effects on it whatsoever. Just listen to it like straight wire. Here's the microphone. Does it sound right? No, it doesn't. Okay, move the microphone. Okay, then it doesn't sound right. Then move the instrument. Just so you get that direct correlation between it sounds good in the room, sounds good in the control room, and it's almost like if you just do that, you can almost hardly go wrong. Like you've got a good recorded sound.
But then you have to decide how to balance it within the music, because you can have a great drum sound, but it just doesn't sound very good with the stuff you're doing. Yeah. So you have to just wrestle with it.
All right, maybe one more question. Go ahead.
I'm just curious, how much analog do you incorporate into your mixing these days? In other words, do you do a lot of mixing in the box, or do you patch out to analog compressors?
I just at the AES I just did a master class in mixing in the box, and I would say for the last 5 years, pretty much 90% of what I do is mix completely in the box.
Is that with Pro Tools or live?
Yeah, Pro Tools mostly. At the studio I work at, it's mostly in the box. I will, if I've recorded the project, I will have done my analog processing on the front end, and then at that point, then it's a bit like, well, I've recorded the sound the way I wanted it, and why would I degrade the sound, in some respect? But if I felt like it needed some analog processing, I'll do whatever it takes to, to create that sound. But my initial gut reaction would be, try and get it in the performance space when you were doing it that day. And then because I'll record with effects, I tend to like set things up and I go, oh, I really like the way that sounds, because I find that whoever the next person coming into the project to overdub on, they're going to respond to that balance. If I have to recreate it all the time, some days it just won't come back the same way. So yeah, so most of my stuff is in the box, but I'm not I love mixing on the console, but I'm dealing with the reality of what the marketplace will, tell me. So.
All right, I guess time's up. So I'd like to thank the panelists for answering these questions.